Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Sam. I am a student of the Bible. I am a pastor and a writer. I write on my blog, samburke.org, if you want to go check that out. And my training involves biblical studies, theology, and biblical languages. My last video was about a week ago. It was about why I'm a Protestant. And one of the questions I get quite often is, okay, so explain to me, if you're a Protestant, don't believe, that the Pope, all that kind of stuff. Explain to me what Matthew 16 is talking about then with Peter. And how Protestants would read that. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 16. We're going to talk about especially verse 18. And then I'm going to go into the Greek and show you how or why we believe that that's not actually talking about Jesus building the church on Peter, and Peter being the first pope and the seat of Peter and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so Matthew chapter 16, I'll read it out of the NIV, then we'll go to the Greek and take a look at it. Let me find my way there. Matthew chapter 16, it starts in verse 13. It says this: when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you?" Jesus says. "Who do you say that I am?" I don't think Jesus is really interested in this moment as to what everybody thinks about him, what they all say about him. He just kind of uses that as like a starting point to get to the place where he wants to go. Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, verse 17, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Verse 19, "I'll give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. The rendering of this being like Peter is the one, I think what we see actually here is that Jesus is asking this question. Peter makes this statement: "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus says, "Bingo, you're right." And he says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church." Now the question is, okay, so is the rock Peter himself? He's going to build his church on Peter, or is he going to build it on something else? What is this rock that he's talking about here? And the reason that a lot of people will say, well, no, Peter is who he's talking about that he's going to build his church on, is a couple different things. Number one, in John, at the end of John's gospel, Jesus tells Peter, "Feed my sheep." And so they go, well, that must mean he's in charge. And then in Acts chapter 2, he stands up and he gives the sermon. Peter has a very important role amongst the disciples. And so they say, well, Peter is the leader of the disciples. He's the leader of the church. Jesus says, "I'm going to build my church, my assembly on this rock, Peter." Now, we're going to go to the Greek and find out, kind of see a little bit, because the word that he uses for rock is the word Petra. Peter's name in Greek is Petros, and it's the same kind of word. One is an actual name, and one is a name of something, a thing, a rock. And so that's where they kind of conflate these two things together and say, well, he says he's going to build his church on Peter. And so that's where we get this from. And that's why Peter's the first pope. The pope sits in the seat of Peter, so therefore this is, papal authority, all that kind of stuff. And so I want to go to the Greek, though, and show you why when Jesus says, this is the rock that I will build my church on, he's not talking about Peter. He's talking about something else, and we're going to talk about what he's talking about. But let's go to the Greek and look at just Matthew 16, verse 18, see what it says there, see how it's translated, and then we'll come back and talk about what that actually means. All right, so let's do some translating, okay? So here we go. We have this first word, kago, pronoun. It's the nominative first person singular. And so we're going to first person singular, so it's going to be also, but it's going to be I. So we'll start there, and then also. And then let's go here. Whoops, we don't need the period there. Wish they wouldn't. There's got to be a way to turn that off. I haven't figured out how to do that. Day.
So now C is to like you, but it's dative, so there's no article, so it's to you. There's no preposition, so we're going to add one using the dative. There you go. It's I say, but we already have I in the front of the sentence right there, so this is going to be say. Conjunction, this is going to be that. So you. Verb. Present indicative active, second person singular, so R. And then Petros, Peter, comma, conjunction K, and, all right, down here, epi is like upon, and upon, pronoun, dative, upon this, and this is te is the article here, which you would normally put like a or the or something like that, but it's dative, feminine singular, so we're just going to not translate that because that is describing Petra, which is not the name of Peter, but it is a Petra, which is a rock. On this rock, I, future indicative active, first person singular, so I will build. Okay, and then mu, pronoun, gender, first person singular, that's my. Tain, the, it's another article, but this is just describing the article for ekklesion, so we don't need to put, it's mine, it's possessive. So we have ekklesion, which is assembly, slash gathering, slash church. I mean, any one of those would work, but let's just put church, assembly or church. And Poulet is the gates, I believe, for the gates. There's no article, so I think we have to add an article later. That's got to be Hades. It's genitive, so of Hades. Not. Oh, why is it period there? Dang it. Not. I'm gonna have to look this one up. Will prevail against. Let's look that one up. It says will prevail against, so we're just gonna go with that. And then down here, optes, which means genitive, feminine, third person singular pronoun, so it would be her or it. It could be her. They translated it all the time. I'm going to say her or it. And I think that it's specifically talking about the assembly because that is feminine also. So anyway, here's my point. I'm going to highlight some of these things. So He says, I also now to say that you are Peter, capital there, and Petros, it's in the nominative masculine singular. And upon this rock, these two things are not the same. They are a wordplay on the same word. One is a name that's masculine. One is a descriptive of a thing, but it's feminine. And so this word here, Petra, which is rock, is not describing, it's not going back and saying this, okay? Whatever this rock is that Jesus says he will build his church on is not Peter. It's a play off of Peter's name, but it is a feminine word, and it is not the actual name of Peter. And I think if Jesus were meaning that Peter is the thing, the person that he's building his church on, his assembly on, he would have kept this as masculine, and these would have connected. But he didn't. He made this feminine, meaning that this is not the same. These two things are not the same. They are a play on each other and play on words, but not the same thing. And this church, this assembly, is built off of this, and they're both feminine, so they connect together, and then all this connects together. So that is why we would say that Matthew 16:18, Jesus is not talking about building his church on Peter. All right?
All right, so there it is. There's the Greek. So what does this actually mean? What is this Petra that Jesus is talking about here? Well, we saw when we broke it apart there that Petra is actually in the feminine, and Petros is in the masculine. So it's not talking about the same thing. So what is this Petra? Well, the Petra is the way I interpret it, the way I understand it, is this Petra is this statement that Simon makes, that Peter makes about Jesus. He says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus as Messiah, as Mashiach in Hebrew, as the Christos in Greek, as the Anointed One. That is the rock that the church is built upon. It is the foundation. Paul says it this way. He says that the church is built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, which is built on the cornerstone, the big rock, that Jesus is the Messiah. He's the Christ. And so what Jesus is saying is the starting block, the rock that all of this is founded upon, that my church is going to be built upon, my assembly is going to be built upon, is what you've just said, that Jesus, that he is the Messiah. He's the Son of the living God. And that is why we say, well, Jesus is not talking about Peter as the rock that the church is built upon. He's not so this whole idea of the Pope and all this kind of stuff, it's not coming from Matthew 16. So that's what we as Protestants would do with Matthew chapter 16. Well, anyway, hope that was informative, and give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.